All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for a few real people out there, just like you and just like me. Well, I said I would review the new Chicago album, and I got to tell you, this is one heck of an album. This could be one of their best albums from start to finish. And look, I know there are fans of different Chicago eras. This is not going to be Chicago 1, 2, or 3. Okay, it's not going to be that. It does take a little bit from the 70s here and there. There is one song that will remind you of one of those older tracks, and I'll get to that. In fact, there are a couple of songs that try to do something for fans of a particular era in the band. But production wise, for production value, like what does this sound like? This is a very clean album. It is a very well produced album. It is a very airy album. This is not like Chicago 19, right? You're not going to hear anything on this that mimics anything from that late 80s, early 90s top 40 period that the band was in when Bill Champlin and Jason Scheff were in the band. If you're a fan of the horn section, right? Horns are everywhere and they sound great. The horn charts, everything they did on this is very meticulous, and you can just feel how much effort went into this, even if they were sending files back and forth because they were all locked down. We heard that story. It's always just great to relive what bands were going through at the time. And some of them are joyful and happy about it. I'm like, nah, going into a studio is better. I'm just saying. And I think these guys probably think that too, that going into a studio is a better thing. But of course, they were convinced that, you couldn't go near anybody. So that's just my little commentary there. All right. So a lot of songs, I think, 14 tracks. I'm going to go through them, and some of this may make sense. Some of it might not. All right. Born for This Moment, Robert Lamb, Jim Peterick. Now, Jim Peterick tipped me off a couple of years ago that he was working with Chicago on new music. And, Chicago born and bred Jim Peterick, The Eye of the Tiger, Survivor, Pride of Lions, World Stage. I mean, Ides of March. See, a lot of the old timers, a lot of the geezers. Yeah, Ides of March in Chicago. I can get that, right? I mean, sure. That he said he was trying to sound like David Clayton Thomas. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm sure he loved the music of Chicago, right? And this was a really good fit. He did not try to make Chicago into Survivor. He tried to write really great songs, and I think he helped quite a bit on this record, as do many of these outside writers here. The title track is awesome. It's a great way to begin the record. It's upbeat, it's optimistic. All of those aforementioned elements, the horn section, the big hooks, they're all there. And all right, so I got to talk about Neil Donnell, right? So I did this video yesterday or whenever talking about how Neil Donnell is not Peter Cetera, Lee Lockmain. He's just not Peter Cetera. He might help some people cope with the loss of Jeff Coffey, Jason Scheff, and Peter Cetera. And I will say this, Neil Donnell sounds very good on this record. So my opinion of Neil continues to go up. When he first joined and I was watching him on stage, I just wasn't all that impressed. But now I'm starting to understand these guys like Neil Donnell for whatever reason. Maybe because he's a great singer. Maybe it's because they get along with him. They have a good rapport with Neil Donnell, and there are probably reasons for that, some of which I understand, and some, maybe I think these guys are getting a little bit more curmudgeonly in their elder years about certain things, but that's a whole other video. Let's stick to this, all right? So the album kind of says in its own way that David Foster, we're sorry. We're sorry we said, hey, you overproduced us. You softened our sound too much. That's what Foster actually said. And he was controlling everything. These guys now have full control, and they're embracing some of those ideas that Foster brought to the table, but they're also kind of going back to those Guercio days a little bit here and there, not the early stuff, but again, the late 70s stuff, maybe like a song like Happy Man, Peter Cetera, and then maybe even forward to like Hot Streets and Chicago 13 of all albums, right? So I hear some of that, but this has its own vibe to it. It's more modern. The production value is cleaner. There's a song the band did in 1995, which is never played on the radio anywhere, even though it was a #1 adult contemporary single. It was technically the band's last #1 single on a music chart. And the song is called Here in My Heart, sung by Bill Champlin. That song would actually fit on this album, Born for This Moment. It would fit. Or that, the music they're recording now would have fit back when they were recording a handful of songs, I believe, like 2 or 3 songs for a compilation that they were putting out. And this was just a great song. Featured both Bill Champlin and Jason Scheff doing that back and forth duet thing that the band, again, made famous, but through David Foster, back in the early days. We know about If This Is Goodbye. The song is charting. It's on the AC charts right now. I first heard it and I was like, wow. Again, very sparse, but instantly recognizable and instantly classic. I was blown away by that. Same with Firecracker, which is kind of like if you had, say, Wild Cherry and Earth, Wind, and Fire, and you turned it down a bit, you toned it down. That might be what Firecracker ends up being. Again, some good songwriting by Jimmy Pankow on that. On If This Is Goodbye, all outside songwriters. So again, we can go back through the history of, quotes by Robert Lamb. Hey, outside songwriters not working, complaining about Diane Warren not having a #1 song or whatever. And just, again, the record label is more at fault than Diane Warren was. Someone Needed Me the Most, great song. Jimmy Pankow has that You're the Inspiration feel to it. I think, and I can't confirm this, but there's somebody on this track that's singing that sounds like Bobby Kimball, formerly of Toto. Could it be him? Someone would have to confirm that with me and send me a message via Patreon, but it's a great track. It's going to satisfy all of those fans of the band in the early 80s when Peter Cetera was at his peak, according to Lee Loughnane. Our New York time. Okay, the intro sounds just like Beginnings. I mean, it's not even, it is, how Journey has that song that's out there, it sounds like Separate Ways. This is kind of in the same mold where you listen to this and you're waiting, even the way the drums come in, and then the song finally goes off in its different direction. But you're already kind of primed to hear Beginnings. Is the song good? It's really good. It was co-written by, again, Jim Peterick and Robert Lamb and this guy, Joe Thomas. So great song, but again, plagiarizing the old stuff. Safe Harbors. Now, what's interesting about Safe Harbors, not my favorite song on the album, but it is the songwriting debut for Neil Donnell in Chicago. Wow. The fact that he had a song, and it's still a pretty good song. They do a lot of great production on the song. It's got kind of quieter parts. Lyrically, it's very good. It's a very good message in there. And overall, even though it's not my favorite song on the record, overall, it's still a top-notch song. So give Neil Donnell some credit for writing a song. And again, great production. Who knew? I did not know he was a songwriter. So that is breaking news right here. Crazy Idea, another great perky little number. Robert Lamb, Jim Peterick. This album does not have a bad track. Now, Keith Howland, former guitarist Keith Howland, that just doesn't sound right. Keith, such a great guitar player, wrote a song on here with Jimmy Pankow. It's called Make a Man Out of Me. Great lyrics. The song has a message and you have to go listen to it, but another real, just decent mid-tempo to upbeat song as one after another. The horns, I mean, if you're a fan of the horns, and you should be if you listen to Chicago, because it kind of comes with the territory, you have to kind of like horns. This album is not going to disappoint. In fact, a good set of headphones, you can clean your kitchen, your bathroom. I mean, again, we got 14 tracks. See what a homebody I am? Like, put the headphones on and you'll get so much work done. You know, it'll be great. And for those of you at work, you want to tune out the boss or whatever, this is going to do it, right? Another song, She's Right. Robert Lamb with a bunch of outside songwriters. Again, really fun song. Lots of harmonies, I mean, yeah, are there overdubs? Is it slick in places? Absolutely. But it's not cluttered. You know, again, this is kind of like David Foster without all of that compression and crunch that he used to do. It's lighter, it's breezier, it's jazzier. Speaking of jazz, Robert Lamb on this song called The Mermaid. This is like a smooth jazz radio song. And there are a couple of real smooth jazzers on here. Bossa Nova. See, Robert Lamb was really into that kind of music, and I think he still is. Like, for decades. I mean, he's been toying with this as a solo artist, and at times he does some really interesting stuff. This, I think, brings it to fruition because he's doing it with the help of the rest of the band, and the finished product here is better than his solo material trying to do this. I'm just saying. I mean, I think as a solo artist, when he does this stuff, he tends to be more experimental because he listens to a lot of different styles. But here, I think he incorporates that vision into the whole Chicago matrix. So good for him, right? Again, no sign of Terry Kath here. And the reason I say that is because there are no screaming guitar solos or anything like that. There's no psychedelic feedback coming your way. I'm not sure who's playing on this record because I don't have the album credits per se. I have the songwriting credits. I'm not sure if Keith Howland played on this. I'm thinking he might have, but who knows? Nobody who left is on this record per se. That's what it kind of sounds like. It sounds like everybody who left. Now, the fact that Keith has a song on here with Jimmy Pankow is still pretty cool and shows that it must have been just too good of a song for them not to keep. You've Got to Believe, a lot of outside songwriters, good pop song. Again, really good perky song, almost a little too pop for my taste, but I do like the song. Bruce Gaich and Robert Lamb writing a song together. Bruce Gaich is kind of like one of these journeyman multi-instrumentalist songwriter. And, you know, I think he's been in a couple of bands too. I'd have to go back and kind of look up his pedigree, but he's fantastic. And the song is called For the Love, and it's great. Lee Loughnane and John Durrell have a song called If This Is Love. Again, fits right in with the album. And I mean, you could pick any of these songs and it would be a hit single. It pretty much every song, even Safe Harbor, would be a big single, I think. Finally, House on a Hill, what a groove at the end, as again, Robert Lamb goes a little bossa nova, smooth jazz. There's this really amazing flute in there. This album is just fantastic from start to finish. So out of 10, a rating of 10, I would probably give this a 9.5, folks, seriously. If you're not into kind of the lighter, more accessible, airy Chicago, you might not like this as much as their material from whenever era, because it is a little bit different, but it does borrow from some of those periods, and the material is really strong. When it's a great album, it's a great album. And again, my thoughts about Neil Donnell, he's a better vocalist than I thought. He just is. He sounds great in the studio, and he helps you kind of forget that Jason Scheff left, that Jeff Coffey left, and that Peter Cetera left. Hopefully Neil will stay the course, because I'm starting to like him. So whenever they get a vocalist I start to like, a new one comes in to replace. So hopefully that won't happen with Neil Donnell. Again, do I have issues with some of the stage presence, the live show, whatever? These guys aren't really out there to be rock stars anymore. They're out there to play great music. And on Born for This Moment, they do exactly that. A great album, highly recommended. Listen to it from start to finish. You'll get a lot of work done, and you'll feel pretty good at the end of it all. I think that's what's really important. We need some feel-good music, and this stuff will make you feel good. All right, that's my review. A little tedious, but we got through it. Thanks for watching, and I, of course, will see you soon.